And I got the results back. And my oncologist couldn't even make a complete sentence. And she was stumbling over her words, and she was trying to say that it went down, and she's like, well, it's 0.00. I was diagnosed with early stage triple negative breast cancer in February 2024. The scans found a 1-inch tumor in my left breast. And because it was triple negative, the standard of care was chemotherapy first. And I spent a lot of time listening to my heart and decided that since there was no proof of spread at that time, that I wasn't going to do chemo first. So I had surgery. They removed the tumor and 2 lymph nodes and got clear margins on the tumor and removed the 2 lymph nodes, came back with not even micro spread. So I had gotten out of surgery and the surgeon said, congrats, you're cancer free. And then I switched oncologists, and my new oncologist started monitoring me with a very sensitive blood test. And unfortunately, it came back with trace amounts of cancer still somewhere in my body, but they didn't know where. And it was too small of an amount to be detectable on scans. And so I was healing from surgery. I went another 2 months. I had that blood test again. It went up. And so I met with my oncologist again, and she was like, okay, well, like, we need to maybe revisit the chemotherapy conversation. And in the meantime, I had found Dr. Joe's work. So in March, right just before I started surgery, I started doing walking meditation 6 on repeat, basically. And that meditation is really about living as your future self and walk as if it had already happened. And so I was repeatedly doing that walking meditation and convincing myself and believing that I no longer had cancer. I went to Denver and did my medical intake right there, and was walked across the room after my medical intake and told that I was selected as a healee. And within 24 hours of arriving to the retreat, I had a seroma since surgery. I'd had a fluid pocket where they had taken the lymph nodes that was being really difficult and not reabsorbing. It disappeared within 24 hours. They had cut a nerve during surgery, so my left tricep was completely numb since March. And during that first healing session, I felt these sharp shooting sensations all over my left tricep. Within 24 hours, I regained all of the sensation in my left tricep. And I thought it was pretty wild and pretty amazing. Immediately after the healing, I left and I walked out, and I was sitting in the grass with some people that I'd met at the retreat, and one of the women was telling me a really heartwarming story that she had heard about someone else that was at the retreat. And the same way that sometimes your whole body just kind of shivers when you hear something good about someone, that happened, but only in my left breast, where I had arrived to the retreat with radiation damage. And it happened so abruptly that I jolted my body forward. I was like, what was that? It happened 4 times that night, and it happened 2 times the next morning. And the next morning I was getting ready for the day, and I had gotten out of the shower and I was towel drying my hair, and I happened to look in the mirror and I noticed that the radiation burn that I had arrived with was completely gone. At this point, I was basically losing my mind. What is happening to me? The third Coherence Healing was very, very different from the first 2, which were really emotional. I cried a lot. I felt very hot. The third one felt just very calm, very peaceful. I teared up a little bit. I was surrounded by this crazy energy bubble. I felt this blue sensation. It didn't look blue. It felt blue. This really cool healing sensation in my left hamstring, where I'd had an overuse injury for 6 years. Got out of the healing and I sat up and I said to my healers, I said, that was just very different from the first 2. I said, I can't explain it, but I just feel like I'm healed. I feel like I don't have cancer anymore. I went home and I had a blood test, that same blood test, the day that I got back into town. And I had to wait about a week for my results, and I got the results back. And my oncologist couldn't even make a complete sentence. That was supposed to be my chemotherapy intake. 5 months of chemotherapy treatment. And she was stumbling over her words, and she was trying to say that it went down, and she's like, well, it's 0.00. And that's it. And I left my cancer body back in Denver.